Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this quite substantial crowd. We haven't had anything like this for some years, and we'll be on our best behaviour, I guess. The meeting is being live streamed via Zoom webinar, and recordings of council meetings or parts thereof cannot be copied, recorded, reproduced, reused, or retransmitted without prior written consent of the General Manager. The meeting is being recorded and made publicly available on Council's website, and persons attending the meeting to refrain from making any defamatory comments. Council acknowledges that this meeting is being held on the traditional lands of the Wiradjuri, Gundungurra and Darug people, and we respect the history and culture of the elders both past and present. Now, Reverend James Toogood was going to be here to do the prayer, but he apparently is running a little late, so I'll just continue with the meeting. Record of attendance, there are no requests for leave of absence or apologies. Are there any declarations of interest for councillors?
Yes, I mean, I have a non-pecuniary less than significant interest in 16.1.
Okay. Well, we have a presentation tonight from the Forestry Corporation, and Mr. Gavin Jeffries will be giving such presentation. Gavin, do you mind if I stand at the front? That I would prefer that.
People in the audience. Just me, you've got the presentation ready for us, I think. Very good. Thank you for the invitation to come to council meeting this evening. It's a great opportunity for me to speak about how Forestry Corporation is investigating projects of renewable energy on our estate. The idea about growing tomorrow's houses and also powering tomorrow's homes using the same locations, same land and co-location of both forestry and renewable energy on the same estate. Thanks. But who's driving the presentation? Thank you. So 5 slides I'm going to walk people through tonight. Give a bit of background to the projects, talk about where we are in the current process, what the timeline is too. It's quite a long timeline. What the project details might look like in consultation, and also then give time for questions and answers as well. Thank you. So our project, the renewable energy project, aligns with the government's net zero targets and also can be managed on plantation side by side with our timber production. There was a change to the Forestry Act in late 2021, which enabled the establishment of these projects onto state forest plantations. I want to make it very clear, it's only plantations that these projects can be put on. They can't be placed in our native forest. Now, the opportunity within the plantations really defined by a couple of key things. The plantations are in suitable windy locations. There are already existing transmission infrastructure in place. There's great heavy vehicle infrastructure there. We've already used timber trucks in the areas. And also there too, it's investment in local areas, in regional communities. One of the things that proponents find very difficult when they're pulling these projects together on private property is they've got to walk around, travel in amongst private landowners, knock on many, many doors and try and get those agreements in place across a large number of landowners. For Forestry Corporation, it was one landowner that the proponents could speak to, and then ultimately end up, having a discussion if it's possible on state forest. So in 2022, after the change in legislation, we commenced a 2-year commercial process to identify suitable proposals, which might be on our estate. And so we went out with a registration of interest in early 2022, and we asked a bunch of renewable energy suppliers to register and indicate to us which areas had the most potential. And when we released that prospect, there were 10 areas that were released. They were aggregated plantation areas from Grafton in the very far north, through Sunny Corner here, to our north from here, Orange, over on the Mossvale group of plantations in the Southern Highlands. And that would also include areas such as Talaganda, near Queanbeyan, Bombala, Tumut, and around Tumbarumba as well. From that ROI process, we had around 47 responses. What those proponents told us was the best areas to have a look at in the first round would be Sunny Corner over on Orange, Bondo, and also what we call Laurel Hills, which is the Batlow and Tumbarumba plantations. We then asked companies then to formally express an interest in the projects, and a much more formal process then commenced to ask from those sites, what might you be able to do on these particular locations? What are the benefits you can provide to Forestry Corporation? What are the benefits you can provide to the state in the way of energy generation? What are the benefits you can provide in local areas and for regional communities? We assessed all that information, and we then invited a short listed number of companies to then look at 4 sites. And the site is, again, it's not individual plantations one by one, it's an aggregation of plantations in a local area. So all the plantations here, for example, at Oberon, are included as a site. And those plantations run from Hampton Island, Hampton East, down through Balkan Gunang, Shooters Hill, all the way through Burraga out to Chunky Creek, and then wind the way back through Dog Rocks, Essington, Loadmount. Thank you. So we're now in the middle of that process of RFP. We've invited companies, a very short listed number of companies, to actually put in for these 4 sites. And we'll assess all the proposals. They'll all be due in by the end of June. And we'll assess them on making sure they don't have impact on timber supply. We can still use it for forest access and also our management, but also what the contribution is going to be in economic benefits to Forestry Corporation, to the state, to regional communities, First Nations people, and ultimately the scale of renewable energy production which would occur and back into the national energy market. So I just want to make it very clear, there are no projects at the moment. So, just talking to some of the some people outside, I think there's a bit of a misconception at the moment that we actually approve projects. There are no projects. We're still at the moment looking for a proponent who might be able to gain access to the land to investigate putting renewable energy into the plantation estate. Once we've assessed all the proposals, the intention then is to move towards offering permits late this calendar year. And the concept here is that the permit is like access to the land. It's like a lease where the proponents then get a chance to then try and work out, is this proposal going to work? For Oberon, it would be likely one proponent who would be given that opportunity, and they will take some time. And I've got another slide coming up as to what that might look like. So for us, when we issue that permit, that access to the land, the lease, that's not development consent. All that is the opportunity for a proponent to come onto the land, they're given permission to work out, is this prospect actually worth it? And then they go through the state government planning process, which would possibly enable that to occur. We're not a consent authority. That's the New South Wales Department of Planning and the Ministry. Some of the discussions I've had too in communities has been around the REZ, and many people are aware of the renewable energy zones. They've been set up by the state government as well, and that's not part of what Forestry Corporation does. That's totally separate, that energy code, and within the Department of Planning. And the REZ is set up enabling the development there, coordinating the energy generation with storage, with battery storage, as well as investment in transmission infrastructure. And as you'll see on the screen, the locations there in the southwest, the central west, the Hunter, perhaps not all the Hunter, but a good part of the Hunter, and also the New England requires investment in the transmission infrastructure. That's one of the real thrusts of the REZ. Where our plantations lie, the transmission infrastructure is already there. And the intent is to try and link into that existing infrastructure. Thank you. So you're right, thank you. So the timeline, it's a long timeline. So we've really just only commenced the process in the last 18 months. Looking for someone who can, a company that can come on to Forest to investigate the opportunity, to develop the site and do all the studies. And so all the studies include stakeholder engagement, certainly includes all the environmental studies. They've got to collect wind data. They need about 2 years worth of wind data from the Met masts to be able to give that to the financial institutions to ensure that the projects are bankable. They've got to be able to negotiate grid connection, both the size and also the security. Connecting to the national energy market is a critical step, and there's a lot of work that gets done before that grid connection approval is given. There's a lot of project design, and as I mentioned before, it's not Forestry Corporation that's the development authority, the consent authority. That actually sits with the Department of Planning. These will be state significant developments. So when you look at the timeline, it's going to be 4 to 6 years before we get to that any sort of approval if the proponent actually believes the project is worthwhile. And then it's going to take 2 to 3 years to build the infrastructure that would be required. So we wouldn't see any generation equipment operating probably before the end of the decade. So it's a long, long timeline. Thank you. So the details of the projects, we get all the information in. What we're looking for is, can it connect to the existing infrastructure? Construction as well. What's that going to look like? What the timeline might be? How's it going to access? How's it going to impact on our access? How's it going to impact on timber supply? I'll come back to that point in a moment. Really importantly, fire management is critical for us. We can't afford to have fires start in plantation and lose any more plantation. We lost enough in the 2019, 25, but yeah, across the whole state. Similarly, the proponents also don't want the infrastructure burn. And so the fire management requirements around this sort of infrastructure within the plantation is going to have to be very, very carefully managed. We're asking proponents to put forward not only asset protection zones and the like, we're asking them for their people also to be firefighters in the community. That's in the request for proposal, and they must address that. Community partnerships. What we see across the whole state now is that there are community benefit funds set up for projects such as these. And these are annual payments made to community. They're quite large in size, depending upon the size of the generation equipment. Communities, they get to decide on how the money is spent. So it's not given to council. That's another step I'll come back to. But it's people such as the people sitting here listening to my talk tonight. Groups can be formed, and you can identify where you want to spend that money in your local area. What's important though for local government, of course, is that because it's states of significant development, CEAs will be issued. There's a range of things that the proponents have to address with that. They have to be able to address road infrastructure. The statutory environmental assessment requirement that is issued by the Department of Planning, and what they do is they very, very clearly address all the things that have to be input into their EIS. So the council, for example, would give input into what those things that need to be addressed actually are. Thank you. Yeah. So it's a great opportunity for council not only to look at it, what might be for a construction, what the impacts are there, but to actually get a really decent input into what the enduring benefit of such a project would be in local government area. So that local job opportunities, yes, there'll be a construction applied. But what does it then mean for the long-term benefit for council? What are you looking for in that way? And that's part of the negotiation you would have with a successful proponent that we would bring to you and introduce. And I've mentioned there the other benefits too for community members. One of the things with the timber supply, just to come back to that, we're limited as to how much land we can actually use to a maximum of 1,600 hectares across the whole 225,000 hectares of the Saltwater Estate in New South Wales. It's 0.7% of the estate. Now, the reason for that was that when the state government changed the legislation in late 2021, in the debate in the Parliament, There's a bit of a concern there that we might go and clear all the trees and put solar farms. Now, clearly, trees need the energy, the solar light for growth. You need solar energy as well for the solar panels. You can't have those coexist. So there was a limitation put on how much land we can clear, and 1,600 hectares would be able to do. So that means that we can then it's almost like a cookie cutter through the plantation where the infrastructure would be placed through the plantation, hopefully through existing roads, and then we can connect in with the grid, or the component connects in with the grid ultimately for energy generation. We've got one more slide. Yeah, very good. So we are now starting to continually update our website. So people can actually connect through the website, and there's a Marlene there as well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Seven. We have pages and pages from the community, and as you can see, probably 40 people in the room. And I find that itself very concerning, as big projects just not a thought bubble. You've presented the council before, and you do again. So, are you here to ask how the community would feel about this project? Or are you here to tell us we're doing it regardless and don't care what the community wants? So no social license required. The questions we've received show that they want a proper community session and access to information to learn about the project and a forum to be able to ask their questions. Now I'd like to ask why you haven't held any questions or you don't care. I'm finished. This looks like a decision made behind closed doors and by stealth. And do you have a proper communication strategy to update all these people, the whole community? Because you live in this community as a forestry, so you need to be a good citizen as well. The community is getting tired of the Central West being used as the industrial zone to power Sydney, and only today, Sydney residents complained about a battery at Tamaray and a battery in Bondi, because they don't want it in their backyard. So it's similar here. We have to put so many projects. They're outside the red zone. Red zones don't make sense because we've got at least 10 that we can count now and more to come with your project. So it's really, what do you plan to do to provide information to these people?
Thank you.
Not in 2 years' time.
No, that's it. So I just want to check that that's the question. Yeah,
Mhm.
very good. Thank you. Yeah, so we're in the middle of the procurement process, commercial process for tender. We do have a consultation plan, as do all of the proponents. What they're submitting to us at the end of this month, end of June, will certainly be how they intend to engage with the community. And one of the things that is a little bit different, I guess, with our project compared to projects on private land, you don't often hear about these projects until they're done. What we've actually come out with and said, well, we're asking for people to be on our sites, interested in who might be interested in coming onto those sites. Until we've got a proponent, we don't know what they're going to propose, so we can't talk about the specificity of any of the project. What we can talk about, of course, is that we've got the process out there, which is, again, good to be able to give tonight. There's a lot of things we've got to talk about. The proponents, when they are signed up to a permit, we will very quickly introduce them to a local government area. This isn't the only local government area that we'll be speaking with. Of course, we're speaking with the others at Orange, involved with Tunny Point, and of course down at Canberra. So yes, we do have a communication strategy. Very clear as to the things that we're going to be able to come and speak about. The public will certainly get a chance to engage with the proponents, not only in a community forum. If the proponents is talking about different ways they can actually engage with the community. Everyone's used the website, I think, these days too. But the really neat thing about a lot of these projects is they're talking about having shop fronts, where somewhere to be and actually start understanding what the concerns of the community.
I'm asking one more question here,
Yep.
but I have seen this in action with APCO, with the pumped hydro. They've got a stop front. Yeah, you can just stop in when you want. That's not a community forum. They got dragged to O'Connell to sit as a panel and answer questions. They all skirt around the communication strategy and just say, oh, come in, have a look at some pretty pictures. They never give the same questions and same answers, and they want a forum get the information. Don't tell me the website, don't tell me the email address. There's so many people that don't know that. And that's not, you thumbing your nose at the state government planning department's communication requirements.
I think it's a really good opportunity here. There's a lot of people have got a lot of questions on it. And I think it's going to take a long time for not a long time, methodically, I think, for the company to be able to sit with the community and understand what the issues are. Look at, I'll put the timeline on the screen there, it's going to be 6 months. I think until they get a chance to be able to come and sit with the community, will be early in the year. That's a really good chance, I think, for the community to get their questions together and understand what is it the community wants to have addressed. And then the successful group can actually then start to work through to those particular issues. Thank you.
Yes, Gavin, regarding the fires, having 280-metre tall turbines in the state forest will surely limit firefighting by air. How will future fires be fought?
Very good.
And there's a couple more additions here. Has Oberon RFS and the New South Wales RFS been consulted? And has there been a study conducted regarding the fire risk of large industrial scale wind power generators?
Thank you. Yes, we've engaged with the New South Wales Rural Fire Service on this project. And we have completed a study into the use of aircraft in and around wind turbines, and particularly in forested areas, not only limited to plantations. So the Rural Fire Service currently don't have standards at all or guidelines for firefighting around turbines in forested areas. That is something that they recognise as a shortfall. So the Country Fire Authority and the in Victoria and South Australia do. There's a limitation here in New South Wales. And what we've certainly found in the study that we've done is that a few things. The turbines are generally laid down rigid, and so and there's a bit of space in between them. The turbines can be shut off at any point in time. On the turbines, we've asked for, and the infrastructure around, we've asked for cameras to be put there and sensors as well. But I also actually arrive in areas for fire in the landscape. That'll actually be supplement already what we put there as towers. We can see them in 5 stars. And the study for the use of aircraft, the turbines can be stopped, and they can actually be, the blades can be positioned, you know, we call it a rabbit or Y formation, or they can be turned totally the other way, depending upon where the fire is in. They can also be moved or pivoted on their axis as well, and so for a large aircraft, they can all be lined so that the aircraft run parallel to where they're aligned, and getting quite close. And because they're quite tall, and because of the alignment of the blade, we can actually put a helicopter right next to them.
Okay, just one more addition to that. I'm sure you're probably very aware about what happened over at Football in December when the turbine caught on fire. Lucky it was still weather and it didn't cause a major bushfire, but that is a huge risk for our area. So I'll leave the question.
Thank you. Yes, it was an old turbine, that one. The newer turbines have all got compression equipment in the cell. And around the turbine itself, we expect to have somewhere up to a hectare of cleared land. It's basically going to be gravel, so fuel-free zone. What you tend to see when you end up with a fire like that is the fire drops straight down underneath the turbine itself, enabling firefighters to get in underneath it. And if it does happen to be blowing at all, the fire can be picked up pretty quickly by the back at the central monitoring location. Firefighters are then dispatched to the turbine and are around the base straight away if it does ignite, if it does not. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Gavin, I'm a little confused with the process because Forestry Corporation is the owner or the manager of the land on which these turbines are to be erected. So when you issue your RFTs to the proponents to come forward with their proposals, before you issue that, wouldn't you obtain community consultation from the community and see and ascertain from that what possible parameters you might put in your RFTs that go to proponents, such as distance from boundary for turbines, distance from water courses, all those parameters before you actually issue your RFT. And you would have got a lot of that if you had had community engagement before you go. It seems to me that you're going to the proponents and asking them to do the community engagement, yet you're the owner of the land. You should be putting at least the basic parameters in place before you go out for your RFT and getting the community engagement. The other thing I suppose I would like to ask, and I'm asking why that, is this is another commercial enterprise by Forestry Corporation. So as it's another commercial enterprise and you're already operating a forestry business in competition with private enterprise, I'm assuming that as a result of this second business enterprise, you will now voluntarily pay rates on all the land that you have in the Oberon Shire, because that's only reasonable. It is a second commercial enterprise. You already compete unfairly with private softwood producers. So why won't you pay rates like they have to? And this is a second enterprise, and you're putting another business into the picture. Will you pay rates on it all the forestry?
Not all the forestry. There will be rates paid by the footprint of the proponents take.
What, the 2 hectares?
They'll pay the rate. They'll also be making contribution to the specific road that they use and bringing the
But
infrastructure.
you'll be earning an income from this.
Yeah, we're going to earn an income.
So why shouldn't you be paying rates on your whole forestry asset or holding?
That's beyond my remit in the project.
Well, I'm asking the question, why don't you go and back to the government and have the discussion?
It's beyond my remit in the project.
So you won't raise it with the government?
No, it's not part of my project remit.
What other commercial opportunities can you see that you will put yourself in advantage to another private enterprise? If you go into solar, you'll be doing the same.
No, so we'll just make very clear, any people who own the land or who manage land can have this opportunity on their estate. So a private plantation grower can do exactly the same today. Private landowner.
But he pays rates on his whole.
They can still put the project on, that's a revenue opportunity for that group. So our work doesn't limit what another landowner might be able to use their land for. Indeed, it diversifies a farmer's income. That's why a lot of them have done it. For us, we're diversifying our income, moving away from the vagaries of the timber market that go through year by year.
So could you go back to my first question? Why haven't you, before you've issued this RFT, gone out for community consultation to get the parameters to which you can then put in your RFT request for tender, but you go out to proponents so that you at least have some ground rules?
One of the really neat things I reckon Oberon Council's done is you've got your guidelines, your local guidelines for renewable energy in the estate. And what I've seen is that a lot of those guidelines are actually been now adopted by the state for all the things that must be done for renewable energy. The guidelines are there. So we've adopted the state guidelines. Part of it came from Oberon. I reckon it's fantastic.
So where you say you can build these things on road, what happens if that road runs beside a private landholder? And the easiest, and there's also a, let's say, 66 kVA or whatever you need for one of these power line in a close proximity. Have you put a distance from that private landholder's boundary on which these wind turbines can be installed?
So the state guidelines give very, very clear guidance on where you can and can't put the turbines, and approximate mainly to houses and other infrastructure such as that.
So it's only houses, it doesn't, if it's a private landholder, that's a farm, stock grazing, or there's no parameters there.
The parameter relates to particularly to
Dwelling, I know it relates to dwelling.
certainly when, from the mapping that I've seen and we've looked at, with them all forestry operations, there's a lot of houses close to the boundary of forest. I can't see any proponent putting a turbine close in that respect. Any landowner, of course, can look at it too and say, well, I'm quite happy to have that close to my boundary. And so that's part of the negotiation process for the people who own the wind farm. They would do that work. That's beyond my remit. I'm a forester in that respect. I'm sorry.
Good job.
Gavin, Andrew, the words right out of my mouth. I may late. But I agree with you. I think you should be doing some community consultation very soon. if nothing else, to understand what the concerns of the community are now. But once you've taken this, any further steps, it'll start getting to like, as we discovered with ACCO, that we discovered with Powing Yards. And Lauren has had a lot of experience with the very poor community consultation we've received from varying companies. And I don't want to have to drag forestry in the stream process. Generally, we've had good relationship, and I can continue that, but I think there needs to be good community consultation before you actually do these permits.
Yeah, thank you. Take that on notice as well. Thank you. I think the thing that's very difficult for us, Mr. Mayor, is we don't have a project yet. So we've got to be able to look at that. We've got to be really careful not to step on the proponent's toes as well.
That's fine.
But I do understand what you're saying.
Where there is a vacuum of information,
Yeah,
misinformation fills it.
exactly. Yeah.
So you need to get out there and say what the intent is.
Very good. Thank you.
Last one.
Yeah, just one question, you mentioned 1,600 hectares of land that will take up the wind turbine. What are you going to do to offset that land? Are you then wanting to purchase other agricultural land to then fill that void?
Yeah. And 1,600 hectares, is located, it's located, of course, across all the 5 different sites. 4 different sites, and so part of that is that the land must be of equal productive value, must be at a similar distance to the timber mill. And it must be in a similar rainfall as well.
With the last presentation we had, I was told that it would be double the amount
That's
that
correct.
you would want. So instead of it being 1,600, be 3,200 hectares, you would want a prime agricultural land to go down there into more pines.
That's right. So that process that commenced, required at market rates, we was successful adoption of the place near Dobrock. And we've also purchased a property over towards Park Hill at 23. Each were in the context of commercial rates. We're not interested in any of this work around culture acquisition. It's very much around that acquisition in that way. Indeed, one of the properties that purchased was actually a grade that came to us and said, I'd like to sell it to you.
My question was similar to Councillor Hayden's, and that is the lady that came and gave us this spiel last time with Jason Lonergan outlined that part of this requirement, if you take 2 hectares of forestry land, you've got to have 4 hectares of private ground. That's going to put pressure on land value and possibly take it away from people to be able to graze their ground. That's a big thing that we've got to get concerned about.
Sorry, can you help me out with that in terms of taking away land value or increasing land value?
Well, it's a false land value that the farmers have got to compete with,
Right.
because that proponent that you get, he doesn't care how much he's got to pay. He's got to secure twice the amount of ground he's using to fulfill the state government requirements. So, no, you might lose the race there, but anyway, but that's one of the things that we need to understand. It's just not quite right. And a lot of the land that the forestry own, you take loads now, is not utilised. You have it, you pay no rates on it. And it's not utilised. You should be utilising more of your ground than rather than taking up. And the bushfires down at Tumbarumba and Tumen that come from Greek and not providing the proper fire breaks, didn't it? Some of them were touching it, so, and you couldn't control it when the fire came through. It was badly managed by a state government resource. But anyway, I'm just concerned about the pressure on the land back for the farmers. And that lady was honestly, I outlined that was in the proposal. It puts pressure on land, especially when you said it's got to be in the same rainfall area.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I reckon.
So it's got to be right next door, version.
Yeah. Well, it's similar area, I think. What we haven't done recently, there was a real push, of course, through the 90s and the 2000s, but when we purchased land, we've actually dedicated that land to state forest. We moved it down to private land. We haven't done that recently. And land that we have purchased, we retain as freehold land, and we pay rates on that freehold land that we retain.
So one way around this is to issue a heap of building permits on the boundary of the forest, so that with our DCP, if you honour that, if we were one of the, I think we were one of the first to have the DCP when we were dealing with the one out at Daisy Bank. It is to have all these houses, so you can't put these things up.
Yes, I think the forest, there'll be some forests that it's not possible to do that, and everybody sitting here will know which forests they are.
Okay,
There'll be other forests that are large, contiguous areas that it probably lends itself more to the use of the renewable area.
what are you saying? The wind isn't out of Daisy Bank, is it? Like, it's been proving for that report out there?
No.
Okay. It's not there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I look forward to hearing from you for the details of your first one, community consultation.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.
All right, questions from the public. The public gallery is open to members of the community, and the community is given this opportunity to ask questions at the commencement of the council meeting. And the mayor is to ask for questions from the gallery prior to the commencement of the ordinary meeting proper. Members of the public wishing to address council are permitted to do so within the following guidelines. The person asking the question at the council meeting must clearly state their name and in what capacity they are acting. The person asking the question is acting as another person or organisation's agent. They must advise the council they have prior consent or authority. Questions from the public is not an opportunity for debate with elected representatives or staff. It's an opportunity for the community to ask the question in relation to an issue or put a point of view relating to an issue that may be causing interest or concern. Due to time constraints, the time frame of 3 minutes per speaker is allocated, and all questions and comments must be directed through the mayor in the instance of the question. If the question cannot be answered, it will be taken on notice and a response given within a reasonable period. This is the only opportunity for a community member to actually address council during an ordinary meeting. Now, I've been advised of one person, Mr. Wilson.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, councillors, don't have a question, but if I may, excuse me, I'd like to make 2 requests of council. One, that the meeting so far, referring to the Commission and the Forestry Commission Corporation, be put up on the website, council website, as soon as possible, along with the forestry presentation and graphics, and then the discussion that followed. And 2, bearing in mind that the Forestry Corporation seems to have a very low priority of community consultation, and it's done a lot of homework almost under the radar, that the council arranged with forestry a public meeting as soon as convenient, so that questions can be taken by forestry. I've got that in a formal. If I may.
You give that to Mrs. Swinell, that'll make her job a lot easier. John, actually, just to be into the brief written.
Yep, we do that as part of the process, and we'll endeavour to have that document put up as soon as we possibly can.
Mr. Swinell, getting copy, so nothing to do.
Thank you. Mayor, council, thanks for the opportunity to bring Dr. Forestry along tonight, and thank you for your questions, they are fantastic. Had a bit of trouble sleeping the last few weeks, and what can just put me off to sleep? I thought maybe a development control plan might put me off to sleep, and there's one there, wind power generation, that you guys put together in 2005. It is the most magnificent document. I recommend everyone to read it. It connects clearly and passionately with this Oberon Plateau. It does a wonderful job. And contrary to the presentation tonight, it covers all the points. It gives us a roadmap to get to.
And some of the things it says in there, I won't be long. It says here in the document, wind farm installations have had a mixed reception by local communities in other parts of Australia and the world. Some installations have polarised local communities, while others have been thoughtfully planned and well received. It is Oberon's intention to keep its community well informed and encourage the well-planned wind farms and that will be well received and positive environmental contribution local and nationally. And it goes on. It's just a magnificent document. And then towards the end, it sets out some development controls. And I'll just read one or two of them. The wind power generation facilities and development should be located and conducted in such a manner whereby there are no added costs to ratepayers. Development should be located at sites recognised as having should not be located at sites having a high scenic value or impact adversely on vista or high scenic value. The developer must assess visual impact and consult with council. Development should be located at a minimum setback of 1,500 metres. Maintain rural aesthetic amenity. Any particular potential traffic conflicts, a minimum setback is required. So all these rules, they're all set out here. They're magnificent. And that is what the question earlier was, why aren't we community being allowed to shape the policy so that then we don't have the community being torn apart? It's all here. Thank you.
Mr. Power.
Mayor and councillor, I was just curious to see that the forestry department is purchasing land at the moment to compensate for future development. Now, they must be extremely confident these developments will be going ahead if they're purchasing offset farm now to offset what they're actually going to do. That's my first point. Second point is, with these consultations we have, wouldn't it be nice if we were able to give our opinion to them rather than them listening to them, and then we have to ask questions? Why don't they sit down and listen to us? We are the people. The Forestry Commission doesn't own the land, we do. I did notice that he mentioned the original owners of this land, but he forgot to mention the people of this land, like us and everyone else in the country. And they just have an attitude, that's my way of thinking, that it's already done and dusted. Thank you.
Yeah, it's not the information garden. The issue that stuck out for me tonight, the timeline, the 6 to 9 years is frightening for anyone looking to develop anything in the community. We've got a $40 million new accommodation, a government retreat project about to be the council. So we can't, if we were told for that period of time, 6 to 9 years, we have greater clarification on where the wind tower is going to be established. We can't build accommodation and invite people to come to the city, to come to the region, if they're going to have wind towers right in their eye line and right next to them. So that's the biggest expansion with the timeline and the limbo project will happen.
Anyone else wish to make an observation or ask a question?
Sorry, I just want to add to that new project will require 50 new people. So 50, right? That will be in limbo as well.
Thank you.
No, I asked a question. Is that all right?
Yes, Rob Morton.
Yeah. My concern is about the wind. Robin Morrison, sorry. Um, my concern is the impact that the turbines will have on our environment once they are of no use anymore, like once they start failing. Where I've done some small research, and as far as I can see, they are very unfriendly environmentally, both to our wildlife that will be in the vicinity of the turbine. And also, are they going to be produced here in Australia, or are we going to allow the wind they pronounce Muslims in, because they're the ones currently that are building these things? That's in China, got big building them in concentration camps. And sort of another thing as well. And I'm concerned about our wildlife populations as well. Okay.
Any more from the community? Thank you very much for all coming along. You're very welcome to stay. You won't have a problem sleeping tonight if you stick for the whole lot. But thank you all very much, and I'm delighted to see so many people turn up to a council meeting. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Yes, I'd be every day. I think it's probably like they have the community of wine.
I like that, Andrew.
So you got 100% of the people last year.
I know.
And you can't eat it. That's what trust. All right, well done. We're a crowd like that. Good.
Must have been a lot of wind.
All right.
Sorry, we're making fun.
Let's move on. Confirmation of minutes, the ordinary meeting of 18th of April. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor McKibben, Councillor Hayden. Anyone got comments on them?
No comments, the matter of the right.
They have it second.
I'll put the motion, all in favour? Pass. Yep. Item 8.2, which is the extraordinary meeting of the Finance Committee on the 26th of April 2023. Recommendations of the minutes of that meeting be confirmed. Hoover, Councillor Hayden, Councillor Dunbar, Councillor Hayden.
Yes, nothing to say, I've got nothing to say.
Anyone else?
Just a question, Mr. Mayor. I suppose it's too early to expect any reply from you, correct, you said?
Yes.
Yeah. Being a government organisation.
but we will chase that up again. I'll put the motion all in favour. Unanimously. Item 10, on that, no?
9.1.
Your report.
Page 53.
All right, Merrill minutes. And, recommendations that item 0901 receive information. On second, please. Councillor Hayden. Councillor Hayden.
Nothing, they have second, no.
Mr. Mayor, have we had any, anything back from the, federal member in relation to the Black Spring Power Project? Which is about halfway down page 52, and I think it's also mentioned, in relation to the Black Springs report later on.
There has been some movement. We had a fairly extensive Zoom meeting with, members of Blair, Black Springs Community and Telstra. The secretaries of Black Springs Progress Association provided a list of people who were willing to have the tower put on their land, and Telstra agreed that they would do site survey. Now, the other factor is that currently Telstra put a drop dead date of the 30th of June to have a suitable site agreed. Now, that has been chased up by the Secretary of Black Springs, who's doing liaison work with Telstra, and it was about 10 days ago, there was an email which said, sending your name out with my word.
Oh, good, that's not bad.
However, one never knows. Anyone else? I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Motion is passed. Note the motion, item 10.1. The Albion Street Pump Station. The motion is, can a report be supplied as to why the Albion Street Pump Station needs a $100,000 upgrade, given that at the time of construction, it was built for 6 allotments it serves. They've already had telemetry upgrades previously. Councillor McCarthy,
I'll move that way.
seconder. Councillor Tucker, Councillor McCarthy.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, well, I think council should be privy to this report and get a complete scope of what's required and what's failed, is because we have 5 existing ones and possibly 3 new ones to come on board. And some of the work that has been done in this report that the general manager has been good to supply doesn't meet the requirements of Australian standards. And I just like to know why something that the council installed this 7.5 years ago. We shouldn't have to be renewing infrastructure of this nature within that short period of time. I understand some of it might have failed, but this is a massive amount of money. And if this is the case, we're up for another $500,000, aren't we, with the other ones? But a part of this, if you can give me a bit of latitude, is below this site is a 33 approved development. And I think we should be asking a few more questions, is when that's going to take place. And this pumping station in Albion Street might be defunct. So if we were hypothetically to go out and repair this at $100,000, and this other one goes ahead, and it's got to have a pumping station because it needs one down Albion Street, we'll have egg on our face, like, well, we've expended that money in 2 years, it's redundant. But I think we just need more reporting. We need to consult with the owner of the 33 lot subdivision and find out what he's going to do about, is it going to go ahead or is he not going ahead with it? That's fine. If he's not going ahead with it 10 years, then we've got to bite the bullet and do this. But I read some of the things in here and it's not compliant with Australian standards. Thank you.
Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I seconded it, particularly because of the last point that Councillor McCarthy just mentioned. about whether there is potential to liaise with the developer of that adjoining vacant land. My recollection from when that pump station was installed, it was only intended to be temporary only for those 6 lots, and when that vacant land was developed, that existing pump station would either be moved or would become redundant, and those 6 lots would gravity feed down to a new pump station which would service that entire land. So if it is the case that that subdivision is likely to happen in the foreseeable future, then surely it would make sense for us to be talking to the developer and coming up with some way that we can get that done, even if it's slightly ahead of the subdivision, but saving ourselves the majority of that $100,000 if that existing pump station is going to become defunct, as Councillor McCarthy said. So if this is passed, I would hope that the report comes that can include some commentary on the feasibility of liaising with the developer to come up with something that suits their needs and saves us a substantial amount.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like some clarification. Page 118 indicates obviously we have 5 pumping stations. Are they all constructed in the same way as the Albion Street one? I know the comment by Councillor Carpenter, I just wanted to confirm, are they all of a similar age, and are they all likely to have the same problems as noted in the general manager's note?
Through the mayor, look, certainly all pump stations have been assessed. They are not all the same capacity and dimensioning criteria. There are unique issues with many of the pump stations, of course, but certainly with respect to moving forward, yeah, this particular pump station has been identified of the needs that are outlined per the general manager's note. So do nothing is not an option. Ultimately, something needs to take place. But yeah, certainly to answer your question, they're not of the same capacity.
They're not of the same capacity, but can I just be a little bit more specific then? Is the wet wall in them all of a low quality commercial grade fibre class site that is likely to delaminate?
Through the mayor, I don't have that all that information in front of me, but they're all different materials. Not all of them, they're not the same, but yes, certainly there is an element there that they will need replacement.
Do they have valve pits and valves in the wet wall?
Again, some of them do, yes.
Is the SPS lid a Gatic type with no safety barricading? I mean, I just go, look, the issues are there. I think that I would propose an amendment that this report be wider than just the Albion Street one, because we need to know what the future holds with the other 4 as well, if this is a serious contention.
Can I just ask the general manager, what is the risk of particular companies?
Through the chair, as part of our due diligence and proactive due diligence, we had an independent assessment come and have a look at all of our conservations. As the director has indicated, some of them are in a different state and different condition as is a majority of pump stations, depending on what they do and how they do it. I think Councillor Tucker made the comment that when this pump station was put in, it was put in on a temporary basis, so it wasn't the bells and whistles, because there was an indication that further development was potentially could happen in that locality, as Councillor McCarthy has rightly indicated. We don't know if they're going to develop that land or not. And at this point in time, because of the nature of how that pump station was put in, the independent assessment says that this one is your top priority in needing something done on it. And that's what's been said. So our pump stations are different, and that causes challenges for Chris, because they are different. You can't just go out and buy the same thing and have it on stock to be able to put it in, because they are different. But we have had the analysis done, And there is risks about each of them. This one is the highest risk. The question was asked by council to do a report. The reason why I wanted to put the general manager's note in is because the reason for the report is directly related to the current operational plan that's on exhibition that the council was resolved to do so. And the additional information will give you the opportunity to have that discussion when you come to endorsing an operational plan in June. So I wanted to get that information to you as quick as I can. But to answer your question, we have had the analysis done. There are different connections, and yes, there are additional things that will need to happen in time, as with all maintenance.
Yeah, okay. This is just 7.5 years old. It's been not that old, but it wasn't temporary, yeah.
Through the chair, it was designed for the 6 lots with the understanding at the time that there's further development that could happen where this could link in.
But that development's not proceeding yet.
Through the chair, there is an approval, but it hasn't proceeded. And that development lasts 5 years. And if you act on that development, then it lasts in perpetuity, but at this point in time, there has been no action on that development.
Councillor Timber.
I'd like to propose an amendment. An amendment would be, can we note the GM's note regarding the Albion Street pump and update requirement of $100,000? $100,000.
Councillor Hope.
Yeah, so we've identified doing nothing is not an option. It was built 7.5 years ago, but it's known then that it was a temporary solution. So at that point, there must have been some discussion that money probably would need to be spent on it again. Otherwise, we wouldn't call it temporary. So I think it's, the GM has provided the information for us that we need and that we note it. And as you mentioned, we cover that when the operational plan is in place.
Councillor Hope.
Yeah, I agree with what Councillor Trember has said, being a temporary pump station, 7.5 years old, perhaps it is time to upgrade it from being temporary.
Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to speak against the amendment. I understand where it could be coming from. But if the only thing we do is to note that it needs some work done, and there's already that $100,000 in the operational plan to do this work, then that's what will happen. And we then run the risk that a year or two down the track, we spend all that money and it still becomes obsolete if that subdivision goes ahead. And we've lost the opportunity to save a large portion of that $100,000. So I think we do need to go through the process of getting the report as per the motion and including some commentary on whether it is feasible to liaise with the developer, find out if and when it is likely to go ahead, and if it is feasible for us to work together and go straight to what was always originally intended as the ultimate solution. and save spending $100,000 on upgrading something that then becomes obsolete.
Councillor Tegay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't, disagree with the amendment or the motion particularly. I just have some concerns that we can't do nothing. So my understanding is that there are redundant fare pumps, one runs and the other one's on standby. For them, I'm assuming that where it says pump set in poor worn condition, that's meaning both pumps. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
How that would get to that stage in 7.5 years, I find hard to comprehend, when they should either alternate or one should run 3 weeks and the other 4, to keep them in peak operating condition and have routine maintenance on seals and things to prevent any other mechanical issues. So I've got some concerns about routine maintenance on them. And going forward, if we spend $100,000, we need to look at what our routine maintenance schedule and our duty cycle thing is there, because it's obviously not right at the moment. It wouldn't get to that condition if it was right, couldn't do. The other thing is $100,000 is quite a fair refurb. I would question the electrical refurbishment and the requirement for it. I think that needs to be looked at a little bit closer. And I agree with Councillors McCarthy and Tucker that there is an opportunity there for council to make a saving or potential saving just by some communication with the owner of the approved development below it. I think for, the chance of that we may save council a considerable amount of money, it's worth doing that. But I take the director's assessment of whether the pumping station will work efficiently to allow time to do that. But I agree, we can't leave it and let it go into complete disrepair or fall. But I think we've got to look at those other 2 options.
Councillor Good?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could, some questions. Firstly, is it feasible to approach the party that has the development approval that hasn't actioned it yet to see whether they're going to proceed with that within the next, I think that approvals have been, I think it's 1 year, so it's probably got 4 years to run it.
I'd have to take that on notice, councillor, but from memory, it has been approved for a little while now. Whether it's 4 months or 2 years or not, I can't.
No.
There is, yeah.
But is it feasible to approach them to ask?
Through the chair, it's always feasible to approach them, but whether they're going to do anything about it is too
Absolutely.
A condition of consent sits on that consent that says that they must do a certain amount of things. Okay, so their conditions of consent dictate what they must do in that regard. But it relates to 33 lots, not 39 lots. So their responsibilities will be totally relatable to the development that they do, not necessarily other development that exists. That's not saying that there's not some
There's not some synergies, yeah.
the other option for council is that they bite the bullet and do the upgrade at the bottom location in a more suitable location. And include it as part of your developer servicing plan and give that money back when and if that development occurs. But now Chris has indicated in his OP budget that is, he's saying that the best way to go about that is just to fix the pump station, because it is critical and we must do something about it.
So that was my second question. If we were to do it on the basis that there was 39 lots, i.e. the 6 existing and the 33 additional. What sort of quantum are we looking at for the pumping station to meet that requirement?
And through the chair, I don't have that information, but certainly we can bring it back in January, in June, when you do the deliberations of the OP with an understanding of what that would look like.
Well, I think I'm happy with the amendment proposed by councillor Trembath on the basis that we do have that information available for us later to look at. My only problem is if we spend 100,000 now at a pumping station, it's going to cost us, let's say, I don't know, we're looking $500,000 or more.
I wouldn't make this up.
No idea.
I would look through the chair, off the top of my head, look at, I don't think it'd be in the magnitude of $500,000. It'd be certainly in the hundreds of thousands. And again, if you're looking at 6 allotments, I suppose going into top of 33, so it's, it may be a factor of 10% in terms of additional volume in the wet well capacity of a pump station.
So if we're looking at a new pump station, let's say 150,000, that would cope with the 6 plus the 33. I mean, is it really, should we be going that way?
I would be going, you to put figures on the sizing of that pump station in terms of cost. But look, certainly I think it's probably not an unfair and reasonable question to be asked of the developer in that potential.
So can I ask, how immediate is doing this? We have to act now?
Through the chair, certainly it's got a high priority timeline on it. Certainly something within the next 6 to 12 months would be desirable.
Well, I'm suggesting that we maybe by the next meeting could look at both options, because if we're only looking at a magnitude of
Through the chair, I think that we've indicated that we can bring that back as to what the cost of a pump station in that location would be.
I agree.
Now, that is not talking to the landowner, that is not going down that path, because that's a whole different conversation it may be, but if it is council's will and want to look at that now, and then what staff will do is bring back a report about, if you did that, how do you then recoup those costs? At some point in the future, we have that. What I can't do is guarantee that 33 lots are going to go.
No, we all understand that.
Nor, and you might oversize a pump station for 6 lots. So that's the other consideration that we need to be.
But if it's $30,000 and we get a new pump station, it may be a more preferable way to go than a refurbishment.
I'll go back to my original comment and say that I think that Chris has had a look at that and he's put his preferred option in.
Right.
But we are more than happy to come back with that, what that cost would be in a new location that would probably suit that. We've done a fair bit of work in that space when we looked at the sewering on Avon, so I don't think that that is a huge amount of work for us to be able to do. I would just be mindful that noting the report and then bringing some additional information to that meeting to say, well, a new one in that location would cost in the vicinity of double, let's just say double. Then you can make that determination as a council, as your.
Well, I don't have a problem with that. And so I suppose what I would be saying is a second point to a further amendment to councillor Trembath, that the general manager look at the option, the costing of an option of putting a larger facility pumping station to cope for future development on a new location, provide a pricing for the next meeting or something.
Through the chair, happy to do that. It doesn't make it as critical then as part of this, because you will deal with a operational plan in June. And then if it's down the track when Chris has done that analysis and comes back and says, well, it's 200,000, you can make that decision on whether you move money in within that budget to do that. So that would
work.
seem to be a way forward.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm proposing, if I have a second.
Well,
Oh, sorry. Well, I'm actually an addition. to
Yeah,
that.
but that's
Yeah.
okay. Let's,
If
if we can get a,
move
addition that's
agreed.
not your word, good.
Can we add a third, did you point to that? How about just to cover the maintenance issues that I think we should look at, especially say we've got 4 or 5 others.
Isn't that separate?
It's a separate thing.
Yeah.
I think. Councillor.
It's obviously
Given
going
the-
forward, I don't think so.
Yeah,
he-
no,
he's fine. I just like to have it a bit
Yeah, no worries.
compact.
and I'm happy with everything.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Trevor? Yeah. Let's,
And the second part of it would be the general, general manager her report on a new Albion Street pump station at the same or alternate location that would cater for the existing 6 allotments and future developments. I'll leave it there.
Can I just maybe use a few, that
few
apply,
words.
that apply for a new pump station?
Yeah.
In a revised location, in a revised location, suitable for future development, be provided to council.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm happy with that.
I just thought that gives you the opposite. If you wanted to put it in existing, you may want to put it there, but you don't.
Well, through the chair, you already know what that is.
Yeah.
And then you'll have a comparison, you know, you're having a deliberation about what you want to spend in the sewer fund or what that then means, like. Is there.
Oh, I thought it might be physically located in the same area, but you're saying it might.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, if I could, a question for the general manager. Do you see any downside in chatting with the developer, informally or formally, and trying to get some idea of their intentions? Is that a difficult, awkward thing to do, or is it a reasonable thing?
Through the chair, it creates substantial complication when council of the consent authority is asking the developer, when are you going to do the development? There is some line that we need to be very careful of not crossing. All I can do is say the timeline, as far as I'm concerned, is 5 years after the date that it was approved, because that is the time that the application is alive for without any work commencing on it. In saying that, that then doesn't stop unless council through their strategic planning processes want to change what you can and can't do in that area. It doesn't stop someone else coming lodging an application again. I'm a bit wary of if council is of mind to spend more money, relocate a pump station to an area that a developer might say, they've done it for me, all good.
Yes.
That's when the premise around our developer service and provisions come into play, and we have to adequately cost that within that document to allow additional recouping of funds for development in that area. It's a bit convoluted, I get that, but there is some generic issues in there.
And all that would be in this report in number 2.
I said a price, not a report, but
Very, Mr. Mayor, look, I take the point of why I. Thank you.
So second point, I think we either should have the general manager after that, or someone has
General
to do
manager
the report,
provided by the new pumping station and suitable options like that.
provide a report outlining the
At the
price.
June meeting. Yeah. No report.
But it's also going to take into account the 6 units, the potential. So maybe we have.
And remember, we are having this conversation now based on 33 lots will happen. I'm cognizant of the 33 lots don't happen. Our community has spent more money on something that could have been dealt with in that.
in a suitable location, taking account of potential development.
Well, I think it's.
I'd leave that out.
It in here.
All right.
It's suitable for human development at the end of that.
All right,
That's got to leave it, because it-
all right.
I'm quite happy with this amendment as amended. I think it deals with the issue that we need to do something.
Yeah.
And need to do it within the next 12 months, as the engineer has said, next 12 months. The money will be in the budget. If, and that, we're still not tied by that, we can move it around and we've still got flexibility to get it made.
Was located suitable for future development. Was
Suitable.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just a brief comment. I think we all understand the risks that if we were to go that way and spend more money on a new pump station, and if the development didn't go ahead, then we spent money we didn't need to. And we will have to weigh that against the risk that if we don't do that, and if we spend 100,000 on the existing one, and the development does go ahead, that's the risk on the other side of the coin. And that's what we will have to decide after we get that report.
That's right, but at least
Yeah.
if we may take a risk of 50.
That's right, but at least we will be clear on what the risks are.
And let me make it very clear, when the consultant did their assessment of pump stations, they weren't looking at future development or anything like that, they were looking at the.
Yeah. No, we appreciate it.
All right, anyone else?
Yeah, I'm happy with the amendment, but I'm gonna make a note on the report here, that no emergency stops. Now, that's in your report, the general manager must have. The reason that there's no emergency stops in all these pump stations is you don't want kids riding by and knocking the emergency stop out. The service pump doesn't work and you get a flood event, sewer going down the thing. That's why they're concerned. Whoever's done this report is incorrect. Lockable devices are provided for your own, you isolate for yourself. You don't use an emergency stop as a lockable device. So I don't know where this person come from, but his credibility is incorrect. And it gets under my skin when we get something like this and you challenge it. That if you get what I mean, all our other pump stations, what have we got, 5? If they're all to be fitted with emergency stops, we could have a massive problem. Kids ride around the bikes, give them a bunk. I'll give Chris credit that he's gone down the path and got the telemetry on. That telemetry also should note that the power's still connected. But if you're going to go down the path and put emergency stops, which aren't required in the local government next door on their pump stations, why is it that this reportee for the electoral side is requiring us to do it? We need, I'm happy with the other report, but I find flaws in this report, that was all. And the other thing is, if I may, I thought in one of the reports like we have up the back of pump station, I thought one of the pumps had been replaced in this pump station. That it burnt out and was replaced. We get, might be about 3 years ago, but I thought we got a report that somewhere along the line, one of them burnt out and was replaced. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was right. So they can't be that bad if one's only 3-year-old.
Yeah, through the chair, not to my knowledge in this particular pump station, but there is a difference between obviously isolation and emergency stops, and it may be a consideration that council needs to take into account, perhaps fencing and locking out public access around pump stations, which is something that in upgrades to pump stations could be considered down the track.
I think that's correct, right? Even they're built so you don't have that input. If you get what I mean, if you go over there, there's no access to the thing. There's no moving parts you can put your hand in, and that's what emergency stops are for. To put emergency stops and create another problem for our staff that could be having a few beers on a Friday night. Next thing you know, someone hits emergency stop. He's got to get in the car and go and reset it. That's a problem. They are not required. You isolate with these sort of things. Sorry.
Through the chair, my only comment to that is that the independent assessment was what this was taken from, and
All right,
that's why.
you bring the amendment. Yes. All right, now, Councillor Trimbar and Councillor Hayden have moved and seconded the initial amendment. Are you happy with that? All right, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? That's unanimous. That now becomes the motion. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Not five? It's pretty-
Yeah, I'll put me in.
Unanimous. Okay. Council and delegate report, Black Spring Community Association meeting, the recommendation that council receive and note the delegates report for the from the 13th of March 2023 and the 8th of May 2023, Black Spring Community Association meeting. Councillor Hayden, Councillor McKibben, Councillor Hayden.
Yes, I've got the two meetings in, we didn't get one in for the April, so both are there and they basically self-explanatory.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott. The report, very detailed, selected, so.
What else? I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Motion's passed. The Opta Tourism meeting of April 2023, council received and note the delegates report for the 12th of April 2023 over on Business and Tourism Association meeting. Councillor Hayden, Councillor Trimbar, Councillor Hayden.
Yes, the report. Nothing to add.
Anyone else, any comments? Questions? Councillor McGibbon?
I just note the Hampton Road issue was obviously causing a lot of angst in the community and people are fed up with how long it's gone on. I think anything we as a council can do to find out exactly what is happening and what the new government's time frame for doing something would obviously be appreciated by all.
I had a very long letter from the new Minister for Rural Roads, which I thank her for her interest, and also said that we could save a lot of emergency funding on roads if you had rateable land on Crown land. My next letter to her will be about Hampton Road, 2 Mile and 5 Mile.
Thank you.
I thought one piece of information at a time for the new minister is like
Introduce yourself.
yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I agree with that.
So she's replied to all that, has she?
Not yet.
Okay.
I got the letter last week and I sent it off on my response on Friday, I think.
Okay.
And I expect, well, I'll either be completely ignored or I'll get something back. And it doesn't matter, I'll still send the other one.
Okay, you got to give her credit if she's replying though, like Paul Field didn't reply from nearly 9 months. And then he switched past it to, that's the one I read.
Yeah.
Then he switched past it to Farraway, and then I got a letter from the plane in that transport was, you got a letter of the toilet paper.
The this was a quite a, it was 2 full pages, really closely typed. And it was about what she wants to achieve and the vision for integrated transport and a few other things. And so it's at least shows a significant interest. Good. Let's see what happens.
We might just through the chair, what it also highlighted was, I don't think the new state government interested in reclassification of regional and state road.
Except as a bit of a beat up on people. All right, anyone else with the Opta report? Not, I'll put the motion, all in favour? 11-2 is passed unanimously. 11-3, Country Mead Association, 9th of March 2023. Council note the minutes of the Country Mead Association general meeting held on the 9th of March 2023. Mover, Councillor Trimbar, Councillor McKibben, Councillor Trimbar.
Yes, I don't really have anything to add other than it accurately reflects the meeting that was held in Newcastle. And it's just a good forum for all our mayors to create a one single strong voice to come together and advocate for the country.
Councillor McKibben.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was very interested on the, the two motions on the bottom of page 61. To disallow, to revoke the previously passed motions to disallow real estate agents and developers, so they'll be back into allowing to stand for council. And with the board right to make the legal advising and decisions. So have we had any update on that from local government, New South Wales?
No, that particular motion is one that's been bouncing around for a long time. It actually, it divides the country mayors pretty much down the Great Divide. Because all of the White Shoe Brigade developers are on the other side.
That's right.
And the real estate agents and stock and station agents are over this side, and it's a different kettle of fish. So I can see this being bounced around for a long time yet.
The issue is,
Sorry, now, just to clarify, that would only be a motion to the conference, which would be, if it was passed, would be a recommendation to the government, or the government whether it's going to.
Oh, no, yeah, but the interesting thing is the country
I just want to be
mayors
clear as well.
voted for it. And there is a written in the country mayors, let alone local government, New South Wales.
That's right.
through the chair, it was probably something that, of course, local government New South Wales were in the room, they decided it was time to say that the country mayors in fact do have some voice, and that's where it comes about. So yeah, agree with all points.
All right, anyone else? Well, put the motion, all those in favour? Unanimously. All right, item 13.1, the uniform policy, and the recommendation to council adopt the updated uniform policy 2107 as presented. Councillor McKibben. Councillor Hayden, Councillor McKibben.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, thank you again, thank the General Manager for a market. It makes it much easier, and we can definitely see the reasoning from the taxation point of view and the increase in the grant for employees. And adding the words obviously makes it clearer from a tax position for the employee. So I fully support the revised uniform policy, and happy to recommend it. So recommend the council adopt it.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm happy to second anything further to add.
Anyone else got anything to add? Put the motion, all those in favour? The motion is passed. All right, tender 2309 over on curbside garbage collection. And the recommendation is that council nominate the open tendering method as prescribed in accordance with the clause 166A of the local government regulations 2005 for the provision of plant contractor hire services for the next 3-year period. Not for further extension.
Sorry, is that correct, Mr. Mayor? Not plant contractor hire services,
No.
garbage services.
I missed that.
I think we should make an amendment before we put the recommendation.
We'll make that as a minor amendment. So,
It's over on curbside garbage collection.
yes, it is. So it's for the provision of garbage contractor hire services for the next 3 years with an option for the further extension of 2 years. So that is T 2023-09.
I think it's rather than hire, I think it's collection services.
Collection.
Provision of curbside
Garbage
garbage
collection.
collection for the next 3 years. And following down 45 missing.
So provision of curbside garbage collection services
Yeah, that's correct.
for the next 3 years. Got that? Okay. At the conclusion of the tender period, all information will be assessed by a panel. And a report will be put to the next available ordinary meeting of council seeking endorsement of the suitable provision for the Oberon curbside garbage collection contract. Councillor McKibben, Councillor Hayden, Councillor McKibben.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yes, for those that slight change, I'm more than happy to recommend 1 and 2. It's a very necessary service for our community, and it's appropriate to go out to with a request for tender for this. So I'm more than happy to move the recommendation to pass.
Yes, I'm happy to second the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of questions. I might have asked this before, but I think my understanding is that the fee that is paid by town residents for their waste collection, that's all it pays for, is just that, but the wheelie bin collection, none of that money goes into like tips or anything like that. Is that correct?
Right.
Yeah. And the reason I'm asking is that the comment about the possibility of including the Blackburn and Borough transfer stations, if they were included, then presumably there would be some way of separating so that any work they were to do at the transfer station would come out of the general fund, and the town residents would continue to release money for the town wheelie bin collection.
Through the chair, that is how the system works at this point in time. It comes out of the council waste
Yes,
fund.
but at the moment, they're not part
But
of the
there,
same.
no,
contract.
the whole community pays that.
Yeah, and there would just have to be some mechanism within the contract payments to make sure where the various components. And my other question is, will the request for tender include the possibility of introducing recycling collection?
Through the chair, very good question. We're one of very few councils that in fact don't offer that service at this point in time. We have traditionally used our community survey to guide council's mindset in that regard. We are going out again in that space. We will be proposing to put a opt-in or the ability to add the collection of recycles if required. But yes, we traditionally use our community survey to do that, and it'd be interesting to see what our community will say, especially
But we
if
will include something in the end documents that leaves open that possibility of adding it in.
that's our intention.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So,
Sorry,
Take it right,
I do propose that if anyone else wants to speak before. I was just going to ask, to follow on from Councillor Tucker, because I think that's a very valid point, that should we be asking, just as a matter of interest, for a separate pricing if there was to be a recycling service? Just so we have an indicator of what it would cost.
Through the chair, traditionally, I think council will note that our current service provider doesn't have that. We have traditionally gone with local because there's a number of reasons we do that. I'm of the opinion and belief that that particular person doesn't want to get any bigger than what they do now, which creates a level of uncertainty. However, it needs to be provided for, but I think we do it through an opt-in, opt-out basis in a tender.
You can make it a non-obligatory part of the tender, so it's an option that they can offer.
Yeah.
And that may be a way to do it, just so we have an idea.
The other thing is, if you start providing those services, you're also looking at a new waste rate and all those sort of good things that go with that. So it might be something that you try and implement over a series of years, because it's not something you, or I suppose you can go and just whack a yellow bin there and say, fill that up, but
we don't want to end up with a great big pile of glass that we can't.
that we don't use. That's right. Yeah.
You've got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
No, not in the ground.
And not in the league. Our league.
Look, I'm happy that, if it's not, that we have that option in the future, but councillors may have a different view. I don't, I'm just rave it. I mean, we all like to recycle when we can, but.
So through the chair, don't underestimate your community using what we have for free now. They absolutely embrace that facility. I think a large number of our community, in fact, go, well, I know that if I break this up and I go to the tip, I don't have to pay to go in the tip. I just drop it and go. So that they do utilise it quite well, and we pay for that as part of our ongoing operations. But it's it does have some momentum.
Well, the last time I took a large box of, what is it, excess electrical equipment and gave it to, what's the lady's name, Gainer. And you could just put it over there and I'll fill it out. Yeah, I mean, people.
Just a clarification, Mr. Mayor, in number 2, the panel, is the panel of our staff, not an outsider?
Through the chair, it's our staff.
Okay.
And in saying that, panel make a recommendation and council make the decision.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
All right, if I'm happy, I'll put the motion, all in favour? Motion's passed unanimously. 1303, request for the repurpose section 356 funding. The recommendations of council approve the request from the Oberon District Garden Club to repurpose remaining funds for the 2022-23 section 356 donation to support a new open garden event concept.
I'm happy.
Councillor McKibben, Councillor McKibben, Councillor McKibben.
Yes, look, I've read the detail and it seems more than reasonable to this recommendation be accepted. So I'm more than happy to move the recommendation.
Councillor McKibben.
I fully support it. There's being gardener, I'm happy to support it. I think it's a great idea.
Yep.
Anyone else? Yeah. I'll put the motion, all in favour? Motion is passed. 13-4. All right, 13-4, invitation to join the mining and energy relating councils of New South Wales. And the recommendations of council consider and resolve to accept the invitation to become a member of the mining and energy related council. Super duper too. Council McCarthy.
I was going to move no action.
Oh. I think it's very important to join and have a seat at the table, considering the number of renewable projects. Would it be you?
Councillor Hayden. Councillor Hayden, second.
Oh, you second, okay, yeah. Yeah, as I said, I think it's very important that we do join and have a seat at the table, considering the number of renewable projects that are coming at us at a rate of knots. And I also noted that the surrounding council members like Tarbone, Dubbo, Blaney, Orange. So we need to have a voice and play for us there. So I would support us joining.
Yes, I'm happy to second this. It all comes under part of that, our theme 3, caring for the environment, and it's important that we get to have some input.
Yes, look, I know it's 8,000 a year, but I think it's probably as important that we are at the table. I note that as well as our potential renewable projects, that are under a lot of, or quite a substantial part of the overall, there is also gold. So at any time there could be a new gold mine and copper, gold and copper, especially around David Burringer area. So, and I know there's people looking at the moment with mining licenses for gold and parts of the area. So I think it is important that we have it not only for the renewables, but for the potential that we might have a gold or copper mine in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to speak against the motion. I don't think this is a good use of $1,000. But just before I get into that, I just had a question to start with. Either the word has been used in the opposite of what I think it was meant, or I'm misunderstanding something. On page 83, first line up, advantages of being a member, it says, the association has a long and commendable history with a dearth of experienced representatives. The dearth means the scarcity.
There's scarcity.
So am I misunderstanding, or did you mean?
It might be a depth.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
Okay, thank you.
Well, it's not a depth.
Yeah. I thought it might have just been at the wrong. Yeah, I'm opposed to spending $8,000 a year, certainly at this stage. We don't have any mines in the LGA at the moment, just a couple of quarries. And at the present time, there's no significant renewable energy production possibility in the future, but that is still some time away. And I think if and when any mines or renewable energy is developed, I think that would be an appropriate time to consider joining, but I just don't see that we're going to get anywhere near value for money for $8,000 per year. I think we should defer it until some other time when it, I was actually surprised that they invited it because of the lack of those industries within LGA.
Councillor Gillian?
Look, I think it is important that we remember at this stage, because when new renewables come up, I think we want the projects to come up, and if we wait till we actually have the project up and coming, we want to know what we should be, we want to discuss with other councils, what we should be negotiating as benefits for our community from these projects. And I think this is probably one of the most appropriate forums where we can do that, to say, all right, for new wind farms, what should we be asking of these proponents as a benefit to the community, like the one tonight? Well, what people should have a view as to what we should be asking, and you know, we may not be fully cognizant of all the benefits we can ask for, or fully cognizant of what we should be asking for. And I think this forum will give us the opportunity to say, all right, if you want to open a wind farm here, then council expects this, this, and this.
I'm going to speak in favour of this motion.
Sorry, I was speaking in favour of it.
Yeah. You have anything, correct?
No, no.
And the reason is that for all of the points that Councillor Gibbons made, with a little caveat, my plan is to go to at least the first meeting as an observer to understand the dynamics of it, and whether it's a pure mining event and they've put in energy just for a bit of window dressing. But you know, that doesn't stop us networking outside of that to look at the VP voluntary planning agreements that are being made by people like Blaney and Carbon and others. So I think it's important we're part of this, and I agree that waiting till you've actually got a renewable energy project up and running in your LGA is a bit late.
Thank you.
Right.
I think this has covered a perfect time. I don't think we should wait. I think we do, with all the renewable energy projects in the air, now's the time to be in part of it.
Councillor Graham virtually
Took the words out of your mouth.
So, yeah, but
Straight lines.
I know, I was going to add one other point that, in the financial implications, it does give some kind of, mention that, the membership fees may be negotiated with proponents when, planning agreements or community, infrastructure started, so. Maybe the forestry will pay those. Anyway, I think we should, it's appropriate that we be in it at this time. I imagine we can withdraw it after 1 year if we're not happy.
Thank you, Mr. But did just touch on one question I had intended to ask you about the 8,000 and where that would come from, noting that there's that possibility in the future, but is there an appropriate allocation in the budget at the moment for those sorts of memberships?
Through the chair, not at this point in time. This is one that's just arrived that we've put on, but as the mayor indicated, if you go to the first one, you think it's a good idea and you want to pay that, then that starts the process that staff talking to the likes of forestry to say, well, are you going to assist? Is that part of your contribution to assist us on? But there is certainly ways to go. We haven't budgeted for that $8,000 at this point in time, and that will have an impact on the following.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? I'll put the motion all in favour. It's unanimous.
No, one against.
Oh, one against. Sorry, councillor Tuck. My error, I'm sorry. All right, reports already been made. The monthly activity report for the general manager, the recommendations of item 1401 see as information. Councillor Hayden, Councillor McKibben, Councillor Hayden.
Yes, I'm happy to move the recommendation. It's a lengthy report. And am I right in saying that we've got an extra staff member there in April? One extra.
Well, good, Chair, that's good.
Very good. Cool, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, yes, the detailed report. If I could ask a couple of questions before I, on halfway down, 85, and I won't delve into confidential, but, comment, there is recent potential opportunities have paused these releases given that this is under land development opportunities. I'm just not sure why it has paused the residential.
Through the chair, I made a comment in relation to an email that I received today from Councillor McKechnie, and there's some there's potential in the should council deal with the confidential matter that.
All right, could I ask,
we could do
explain,
things differently.
all right, if we could explain that in confidential, I'm happy, because I had the same question in relation to the status of resolutions, because there was so under funding deeds implementation, I think that might have had similar wording to last time in April. So work has now commenced on delivery of these programs and all deeds have been signed. That's what, yeah, basically.
Yeah, so through the chair, as part of a lot of our funding deeds that we needed to give, as part of our funding allocation prior to the election, there was quite a substantial amount of work that needed to be done to make sure our funding deeds were put in place. As you're aware, there was quite significant ones that we had to do. We just made the indication there is to show council that we are in fact moving on those things, and we are moving forward.
I just think it was the same wording as last time. So
And through the chair, it would be, because it's moving in that direction. Probably is, but it's not only one deed, there's a lot of other ones we have as well.
And just some clarification, and this is purely a question because I don't quite get the gist of what it means, and it's not anything how you've written it. It's just me, I think page 86 halfway do. What are the consequences of the remuneration tribunal having determined the creation of 2 new remuneration categories, metropolitan major and rural large? Do they impact on us at all?
Absolutely nothing to do with us whatsoever.
Okay.
The reason why it's there is that, as you can tell by the document, the remuneration tribunal put a 3% increase on council fees last year. We in our budget indicated a 5% increase. It's there for your consideration, and as part of the delivery of the op plan, we will need to put a separate recommendation within those documents where you make your determination on whether you take it in or not.
And then it says the tribunal has recategorized 26 councils into a higher existing category into a new category. So that doesn't affect Oberon. Okay. All right. So we don't have to worry about any of that. That was my question. I wasn't.
What is interesting, Councillor McKibben, is that we were told by the president of the tribunal that he wasn't going to recategorize. And he sort of not change the categories, and then
He did.
6 weeks later he came back and said, "Well, we've got 2 new categories."
I do remember something about that.
Yeah,
So that's why I was shaking my head and saying, I'm not quite, it wasn't anything to do with how the general manager wrote it. I was just, this doesn't seem to sit with what I said before.
What was said and what was done, I mean, it's not a grievous thing, but it's just a bit different.
Thank you very much for clarifying.
And the reason
I was scratching my head. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm more than happy to second the recommendation.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'll put the motion all in favour. Motion passed. Unanimously, item 14.2, monthly activity report for planning development. Recommendations that item 14.2 is received as information. Your seconder, Councillor Pember, Councillor. Councillor Pember.
Thank you, give information, it's great, just one question for the planning director. What is the impact of the mandatory development consents being required in the portal? Is it taking more of our staff time, or is there a long-term benefit?
Well, through the chair, with the library of conditions contained within the portal by the Department of Planning and Environment, that will, it's just ticking the box for the relevant condition, and any bespoke conditions that council adds into consents on a regular basis, we can also put into our own council library. So I think that the time preparing consent now versus on the portal would sort of even itself out in the future, I believe.
That's working itself out.
Works, I guess.
Thank you.
Thank you. Comprehensive land use strategy, bottom of page 91. So we've commenced preparation of the CNS review, so that will be ready for us to review later this year. Checking. And I just a few questions in relation to the applications lodged April on page 93. We've got a couple there that have been sitting there with which of information is received, which have been sitting out there since September and October 22. So they've been running 7 there. That's if you look at the rows, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th row, 7th row, 9th row, 10th row. And then again, we go down the bottom, we've got April 23, which I suppose that's fine. But yeah, some of those, I just asked maybe if you could investigate what's happening with those ones where the information has been received, but the determination has not been given. There's at least 4 of those in a lengthy period of time. It's over 7 months. If you could look at those, please. That's all I had, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I'm more than happy to second the recommendation.
Yes, it's good to see that the over on Oxley dog park maybe commencing in June, so I'm very pleased to see that. And I just have a question regarding the reef primitive camping ground. Has there been any further information there with the grants and what's happening?
Yeah, my understanding is, no, we haven't. I got a note and find out.
And I'm glad to see that towards the second half of the year with the open gym upgrade.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mine's the same, Mr. Mayor, on the primitive camping ground, and it relates to the second last line and the last line. So we've gone out to approach contractors that are working in the area to get prices to do this now.
Through the chair, that's my understanding for our project manager.
Okay, I spoke this week to someone that was not interested in doing part of the work, but is interested in doing the whole thing. And my understanding, he hasn't been approached, so he's happy to work for council.
Through the chair, you can provide me with that information.
Okay, I'm happy to do that now.
Again.
But we brought it up in the briefing session, but he's not happy to work. I'd act to that.
Any more? Motion all in favour? Unanimously. Monthly activity report of technical services. Recommendations of report item 14.3 to receive this information. Councillor Hayden, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Hayden.
Yes, I'm happy to move the recommendation to see the report, and I really like the camera that's taking the photographs. Anyway, there's been a lot of work progressing and yes, as always, it's a credit, and let's hope that we keep getting some lovely weather to get all the retaining walls and that finished down in the common, which the work's starting to look really good down there. So it'll look awesome when it's painted down and the living legends are up. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one question of 103, 104 in relation to drainage improvements. And yeah, the photo of that altered pit looks good, includes the capacity. The question is, my understanding was that the four relatively new pits that were built in Earl and Valley and Curtis were going to be the first ones that would be upgraded in that manner. But they do continue to get blocked regularly, and I'm wondering when they're going to be upgraded.
Through the mayor, they have been delayed. There is a contractor that has been provided a quotation for that, so maybe the next 2 weeks was the last time frame that they said that be available to undertake those upgrades and move forward.
Thank you.
Any more? I'll put the motion on the table. Monthly activity report for corporate services. And recommendations, item 14.4 is received as information. Councillor Hayden, Councillor Miller. Sorry, Councillor Hayden.
Yes, I'm happy to move the recommendation. It's really good to see that the computer system upgrade and everything's getting done, and that'll keep staff nice and happy. Everyone's very proud of that. It's good to see the Community Services Youth Week. I heard that the fishing day went off very well. And Waste to Art is coming up. And Field to Forest report in there, but that's always a big hit. And our Aboriginal working group that meets each month now down at the Brisbane Information Centre, they're still getting a good amount of people and getting some plans underway for what's occurring later in the year.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm more than happy to second this. I note, as Councillor Hayden has already said about the open office, and I know it's going live the 22nd of May. And the visitor information centre refurbishment is progressing. I know they've got the undercoat on. I hope they get the overcoat on quickly, because it's with a long frost and fog, it's going to be a bit hard to apply it if it takes too long. I was looking at painting a roof, but I know I've had to give up because weather's not with us. And I'm very glad to see we're in the, obviously, as it's been mentioned, we're in the top 13 towns for top tourism town award. Wait to see what happens on the 30th of May. You said more than happy to second this recommendation.
Any other councillors?
Sorry?
Anything else? Councillor, this one? Move motion, all in favour? 14.5 investments. Recommendation is that 14.5 is received for information. Councillor Hayden, Councillor McEwen, Councillor Hayden.
Yes, I'm happy to move the report. I noticed that the interest rates haven't moved very significantly as yet. Let's hope that they can.
Councillor McEwen.
I thought that actually moved a bit.
Yeah,
I thought, you go from about, apart from those that are invested some time ago, 22, there's the rest are all in the four, basically getting to fours and late threes. So I think it has moved, so that will increase our income.
They've done pretty well.
So I'm very happy with the report. Now I'm more than happy to second it.
anyone else? Motion all in favour? Pass unanimously. All right, grant updates, page 23, recommendations of item 14.6 of the business information. Councillor McKibben. Councillor Hayden, Councillor McKibben.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I note that this is the beginning of May, and I don't think it notes our most recent grant, does it? 337,000, which I think came in probably after the report was written.
Thursday.
And through the chair, there is an application process that we've not been advised on that particular grant just yet, so we have been given a heads up, but not the actual official application process, but that will be in the next event.
Okay, fine. No, I thought it was probably a timing issue that we talked about something on the 3rd of May, so I wasn't not sure at the time. So we've got still a number of these ones that have been pending for some time. And I assume whether state or federal, the new governments will be considering them, and we will have a notice at some time. Is that all we can say on those, or does anyone have any update on that?
Through the mayor. What we've been told is that the current state government has just stopped the run out of grants at this point in time until they review. They will certainly reintroduce and they've started to do that at this point in time. And what we can tell is the federal government will start to push out theirs now. There'll be another one that we'll deal with in June as well, that will allow us to apply for the delta that we currently have in the SDP in the process. So those types of things are coming back around for us to consider as well.
I had a very happy phone call from the president of ATHR last Friday, I think. And they had a grant forward. And they were very worried they were going to lose it. So on Monday, Senator heard from the region funder, gave me a call to say it was all back on, and he was very happy.
That was quite a substantial grant.
It was quite a substantial.
But I'm more than happy to move this, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
I'm happy to second.
Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of questions, both on page 115. First question about the table that carries over on the top of page 115. That's the first item. Drought resilient through diversification application 450,000. Can you just remind me what we applied for? I can't remember that one.
Yeah, through the chair, that's a joint application between ourselves, Bathurst and Lithgow for a strategic planning piece, working on diversification through agriculture, agritourism, 2 phases, consultation and development of a strategic plan that goes across the 3 council areas. That's very much an economic development strategic planning project.
Thank you. I assume it was in the papers back in February or March, I just couldn't remember it. The other question is further down under the community batteries funding. Firstly, I assume it's a typo. It says Arena was established on 1st of July 23. I assume that 22.
Oh, yes, that would be correct. Apologies.
More importantly, do we intend to put in an application under that fund, under that extra provision?
To the chair, nothing confirmed yet, but we are evaluating to see if there are any opportunities.
So no idea at this stage if we were to apply, what we might be applying for.
Nothing to, through the chair, nothing to report at this point.
Thank you. That was all, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? For the motion, all those in favour? Let's do 1407, water and sewer plant report. Councillor Hayden. Councillor Tremper, Councillor Hayden.
Yes, I'm happy to move the recommendation of this report. Notice that the water is just running along nicely, but once again down here to the number 1 pump station. that had to have both pumps lifted out of the wells for more incoming solid metal or rail. I don't know how many times it's been told in the community, but I don't think they're listening. Maybe they've all decided to double put them in there, but anyway, maybe we should just get all the community down there to pull them out by hand.
So I think that's collective punishment, not allowed up on the amendments.
Nothing further to add. I'm happy to second it. My only question is, you noted that there's consistently high iron levels. And this has been something that we've experienced in the last 18 months. And do you see any change in that? You said you haven't seen it for 20 years. So.
Through the chair, look, I anticipate with the forecast weather that as long as the dam doesn't keep flowing or inflows, that it will settle. Again, it's not unusual this time of year with stratification of the dam, if the dam turns over with the weather. And I think that's what's provoked the peaks again in the actual manganese and iron levels.
Well, at least the water's full. You haven't seen any complaints. Thank you. I'm happy to second it.
Anyone else? Motion all in favour? Unanimous. 14.8, council resolutions, recommendation to report 14.8 received have been promoted. Councillor McKibben. Councillor Hayden. Councillor McKibben.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know that Councillor Pemberton, this is my resolution. I just, if I could just go through a couple of them, the first on page 120. I take it the comment there by the Director of Planning, Council Austin engaged with Crown Land to provide the revised plan for management. The comment that we got back from Land previously that they needed revised plans, and we have now got the consultant to prepare those, and we've lodged them. Is that correct? I'm just trying to read between the lines. That's how, because it didn't actually say that the Crown wanted revised plans, but I assume that was what was.
Through the chair, yeah, this process is one that we had a grant fund, we complied with the grant fund, they changed the rule, they sent them back. We sent them back and we await what they've said. And the next one, which is the I can never pronounce it, I'm not Welsh, Glendale. If you're Welsh, it's different pronunciation, but anyway. Progression of plans and the site continues given the strike constraints, so where are we up to with that? We're looking at the costing on whether we move a sewer main or whether we can do some work in that space, or we just move the units across the infrastructure. So yeah, that's what that.
So something will come back in June or something, not July. Okay, and that's good. The next one, the one that is sorry, halfway down page 121, which is 14.15.022. The new alignment fencing was completed in December 22. What's holding up the transfer of the land? Have our lawyers been sitting on it, or what? It seemed to have gone on for quite a long time. Anyway, it's amazing, isn't it?
You through the mayor, it's certainly been yes, in progress for some time. I'm certainly following up on that, so hopefully get some word of you very soon.
Well, I'm just hoping I would have thought this is a relative step, so we won't need to push our lawyers more. But I'll leave that to you on the general manager, but yeah, it's been going on for a while. I note on the next page, 122, general manager had a discussion with the proponent on the sale of the land called Rabbit in Campbell's River, but no information has been provided. Was the discussion positive and that the person looks as though he's going ahead, or negative and that he's going to let it lapse?
Through the chair, and interest rate hikes hasn't helped the situation.
Right.
Without disclosing what. That was pretty much the reason.
Okay, so that's probably in limbo at the moment.
Through the chair, I don't want it to be in limbo forever, so it'll either be potentially a letter to the applicant to say, please give us a timeline, or we're not gonna do it. So we'll go down that path if and when we get to it.
Okay, the two residential and industrial land, I understand we're looking at that in relation to.
And through the chair, just by way of clarification, if you take that last sentence out of the report provided to me, like if not the report on the residential land, it just provides opportunity in the residential space. It's able to confuse them because there is no report for the residential.
No, and that's why I
Take the last, yeah,
before,
That's
so,
right.
but you did say that what we do in the industrial may affect the residential.
correct.
Okay, so should the report be pending a decision on the industrial in the May report? No, all right, okay. Oh, that's why I'm, all right, thank you. I just see the one at the bottom of 124, which is Neves Road. Again, this seems to have been sitting with the council solicitor for some time.
Through the chair, what we're also trying to do is evaluate our own internal staff to be able to do these.
Yep.
And this one is one of them ones that we'd like to get our staff involved in, sitting with our lawyer to go through what's involved in that road closure process. So we can in fact value add it into our own organisation rather than.
They use it as a training exercise. Okay, that's fine. Maybe we just need to say it's been delayed because we're using it as a training exercise anticipated. Yeah. All right, the next one, on the awning, it's good that we've got the contract of painting, have we by now got the quote for the roof?
Through the chair, we have the quotes, yes.
They have the quotes and we've got to make a determination. Okay, so we've got those, that's good. I look through the rest, I think the rest's all fine. I'm more than happy to move this. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Go for Hayden.
Nothing further about.
What's the action on the land out there, that Abercrombie and Campbell River Road? I'd like to see if we can't get the general manager to write to the proponent and give him 30 days to make a decision, as it just takes up council time. We don't own this land anyway.
More than happy to do that. We haven't.
Stop wasting the council staff time, because he's already bought a location out there, hasn't he?
I had some further knowledge from the general manager in relation to that.
So,
Okay.
yeah, I'd rather see it, do with it, give me 30 days and then cross it off.
I think he's got other interests.
I'll put the motion. All in favour? Yes. I'd like to see the previous. Unanimous?
And they have low runs over the dam, it's fine. Right. And they have low runs over the dam, they've been doing, you know.
We've been going over our place, we've been
Been good.
There's no urgent business,
Getting ready for this.
so we'll be going into the confidential. So in accordance with the Local Government Act 1993 and the Local Government Act General Regulation of 2005, in the opinion of the General Manager, the following business is of a kind referred to in section 110A2 of the Act and should be dealt with in a part of the meeting closed to the media and the public. Thank you.
I'm more than happy to move us into.
Kevin and Hayden.
All in favour?
Good cheap. It's all right.
So stop recording, please. All right, we are now back in open session. And in accordance with Local Government Act and the Local Government General Regulation, sorry. The following resolutions were made during the section of the meeting that was closed to the public. There were no members of the public present at the time or members of the press. Item 16.1 Bailey's Lane Causeway Replacement. Council resolved to proceed with the supply and construction of a new single lane bridge structure by contractor Murray Valley Piling to replace the existing low level causeway on Bailey's Lane. The existing $206,905 plus an additional $60,000 of funding is taken from the existing $1 million New South Wales severe weather and flood affected grant funding to assist in the delivery of the new bridge structure at a total cost of $266,905. Council will reduce the previously dedicated funding under New South Wales severe weather and flood affected grant fund, gravel reshooting to make up the shortfall for the development. That the bridge be installed, including fitting of safety rails, to be funded from the existing $1 million New South Wales severe weather and flood affected grant funding. And the general manager is authorised to sign the relevant contracts and authorised payments associated with the project. Item 16.2, late application for section 356 funding. The council placed the additional section 356 application list on public exhibition for 28 days. Item 16.3, the Oberon Pool and Fitness Centre operations. The council note the report and the recommendations within. And item 16.4, a land matter. The council indicated support for the sale of land outlined in the report and undertake a review of stage 2 of the industrial estate. The next ordinary meeting of council, Oberon Council, will be held on Tuesday, the 20th of June, 2023, commencing at 5:30 in the Oberon Council Chambers, Oberon Street, Oberon. I declare this meeting closed. Thank you all for attending by Zoom or otherwise, and you may stop recording.